Cool. Look at this cheap podcasting method.
Oh, it's so good. All right. Holy heck, this is Ryan from So Is It Any Good. Today we're doing the Movie Challenge podcast. This is the first episode. We are hitting week 1, which is classic 1960 films. On the line we've got...
Hey, this is Scott.
And Ben. Hey, guys.
Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good, man. How yourself? How's your week been?
Well. It's been an exciting week, and I'm very excited to get cracking on our big movie challenge. Very excited about all this. Yeah,
so the movie challenge was just a little brainchild of my own. I'm taking the credit for that. I've been going through Netflix recently. Can't really find much to watch, but I think it's probably because there's so much to watch that I can't really narrow it down. And so I wanted something to narrow my search down and bring something, to everyone else that reads the site and, watches our videos and stuff like that, and they could follow on with us and play along almost. And so that's where I came up with the movie challenge. It's 52 weeks, 52 movies, 1 movie a week, different genres, different movies, different directors, all based on your choice. But we're given, a little genre to pick from. And I wanted most people to pick movies that were things they haven't seen before and probably a little bit outside of the box that they're used to being in. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. So, this is week 1. It's movies from the 60s. Myself, I chose 2001: A Space Odyssey, which is quite weird that I haven't seen it, being now in my 30s, and that being such a genre-defining film. And yeah, what did you pick, Scott?
I, like you, also went down the path of something I hadn't seen before, but also should have seen, because when you consider yourself, call yourself a movie fan, there's certain films that I think should be on this list. But I watched Blake Edwards' 1961 film Breakfast at Tiffany's, which was eye-opening to say the least.
I'm sure we'll get to that soon, Scoot. So I had all intentions of watching like one of those big, like epic classic films. Like I had my eye on Dr. Zhivago, but when push came to shove, I just wanted something light. I wasn't in the mood for something too heavy, so I went with something a little bit airy and something I'd already seen as well. So I watched Hard Day's Night, which is the Beatles black and white classic Beatles film Richard Lester did back in 1964. And so that was my choice.
Well, I think that's a really good point that you make, that you didn't want to watch something that was more genre defining or blockbusterish, because that is part of this movie challenge, and that's what I want people to do. It's see the line that it says for this week, and particularly this week, the 1960s film, and just choose whatever they want to watch that's from that genre, because I think that's really makes it more fun and makes it more just fun, I guess, in general.
And I think this whole challenge, I think, is incredibly doable as well. And this is not like one of those crazy New Year's resolutions that we're going to give it up. I 1 movie a week, and going through a backlog of films that we would love to see and just haven't given ourselves the time. And also with the technology, with Netflix and all these other services now, pretty much giving us what we want on demand. It's incredibly doable, and I'm very excited to kind of look back at the end of all this and kind of see all these movies that I've seen this year, and can tick off my everlasting film list of things I need to watch.
Yeah. So, Scoot, I'll start with you. What did you think about Breakfast at Tiffany's first viewing?
Yeah, so definitely, I went in knowing nothing about this film at all, other than seeing pictures of Audrey Hepburn with a long cigarette stick. And I knew Tiffany's existed in New York, but I didn't know anything beyond that, really. And I think what surprised me was how funny that Audrey Hepburn was in this role. I just expected like a serious romantic comedy, but she is a Fruit Loop in this film.
Yeah, she's very crazy.
Yeah, but it's really quite enjoyable to watch. And I think, it's a bit of it gets a bit slower, I think, at the end. But I think the very first half of the film is when she's kind of playing off all these, rich people and trying to live, this lifestyle while hiding this. Well, spoilers, but hiding, the fact that she's this farm girl that's kind of...
Okay, can we just say that if we're talking the 1960s, we don't have to worry about spoilers.
Hey, spoilers. Got to give everyone a chance to see these films, right? 50 years is not enough. Um, but yeah, I think there's a sequence I think early on, or probably a third of the way through the film, where she hosts a bit of a like socialite party in her little apartment room, and I thought that was just really quite good, and that was really there's almost slapstick humor in that, and just everyone's so wacky and all over the place. I thought that was quite enjoyable. I think the other thing that really surprised me was, and maybe it's just I just don't know this era of film very well, but it was slightly way more risque than I thought it would be. Early on the film, the male lead, I can't remember his name, but he's getting dropped money by his dropped money for sleeping with some older lady. Basically a gigolo, I guess, and then she's playing off all these rich people. And
so would this be is this PG in Australia, or is this definitely an M film?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, but I mean, it doesn't do anything in the M rating, but at the same time, I still would have thought people, I don't know, swinging 60s maybe, things obviously starting to change, but there wasn't, there was nothing in your face about it. It was just slightly more, a bit looser than I thought it would be, which was all the better because it ultimately helped make the film even, to be this light and bubbly kind of thing. I thought the kind of the later half of the film where it starts getting a little bit more serious it was a little bit of a slog to get through, but I can kind of see where I mean, Audrey Hepburn is wonderful in this movie, absolutely just wonderful, and I think she does just a phenomenal job. I've never really watched much of anything else that she's kind of done, but I would gladly watch anything now. That I think she's absolutely great in this. We probably should talk about Mickey Rooney's role, which of course is
yeah. How do you not talk about that?
Yeah, so it's kind of it's I'd heard all this, big hoorah about it, Yellowface and all that kind of stuff. He's really not in the film that much, but it is pretty full-on caricature. Like, it's obviously nothing. I'm surprised you get away with it then, and definitely would not get away with it now. But I was looking up some interviews with it, and he said, nobody at the time really thought they thought, oh, yeah, it's probably, we'll get away with it. But I don't think anyone really thought of the long-term impact of that. I mean, it's pretty.
It almost makes almost ruins the film. Like, well, at least the scenes that he's in anyway. Like, I actually saw this for the first time at the Orpheum. It was just like an Art Deco cinema here in Sydney, and it was really nice. It was Valentine's Day, and wife and I went, and it was really good. But it was just like you could just sense this feeling every time he was on screen. Everyone was just cringing. Like, you could actually just feel it.
I'd love to hear what the reaction was, when this film came out, because whether
would have been rooms of laughter.
Yeah, and I mean it's just a changing of times, right?
It would have gotten the same reaction like Will Ferrell gets when he goes on a massive screaming rant. Yeah. But
and I mean we understand why it's considered racist and kind of over the top, but it's it's amazing to kind of that a film that's so big and has such a lasting impact has such this kind of about face of this randomness of this character. It's very odd.
I mean, I've seen it myself. I saw it not long ago because this is actually one of my wife's favorite films, Ariel. And it was kind of almost like a prerequisite of dating her in a way to see this film, alongside Muriel's Wedding and probably Little Mermaid. Anyway, so I'd seen this movie with her, and I didn't even know about that Mickey Rooney role, so I had no context coming into it, and then I saw it, and I was just like, holy shit, what the fuck is that kind of thing? And it took me completely out of the film, especially in the scenes that he was in, but it almost dragged on into other scenes because it was just so blown away that they actually did it. And I think there you go. Yeah,
right. I think it's all him like running into things and just being like stupid, right?
Oh yeah.
And obviously they put false teeth in, and he's obviously dyed his hair. And I mean it's a full on yellow face, I guess is the proper term, but and it's yeah, it is. It's very hard to watch.
But
But I think
outside of that character, I think the film's actually quite enjoyable. I agree
Yeah,
with you.
100%. That's really
yeah,
the only. It's. I mean, that's really the only kind of downfall of the film, and it's even that's only at the time it probably wouldn't even be considered as that. So,
Yeah, that's right.
it's curious. It's interesting how films kind of change as the decades kind of go on. But yeah, all in all, I mean, it's probably not like my favorite film of all time, but it was very enjoyable. I'm glad I watched it, and I probably have a great new appreciation for Audrey Hepburn.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
yeah, I think she was wonderful in this film.
and the cat
Yeah,
is great as well.
Cat.
Joins a long list of animals that
Side characters.
memorable roles. Yeah.
Who are the other ones, Ben?
Well, there's an award at Cannes every year called the Palm Dog, and
Oh, really?
yeah, and I think this year it went to the is it Patterson? There's a film this year that apparently has just an amazing dog performance.
It's not Red True Blue.
Oh yeah,
should be.
Yeah. But yeah,
How'd they decide that Year with Homeward Bound?
Oh gosh. I seriously think whoever made those films, like, they deserve an Oscar, like, in itself.
The Jim Jarmusch film.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe they're talking about Adam Driver. Maybe they remind him of a dog. I don't know. He does have a puppy dog look about him sometimes. Anyway.
Okay. Where's this going? 1960s films. Yeah, so I watched 2001: A Space Odyssey, and this is the first viewing of it. I'd seen little bits prior to this, but as a whole, I hadn't seen the whole film. And it's obviously directed by Stanley Kubrick and written by him. And yeah, like, it's very, 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 very long. 2 hours and 29 minutes. I'm reading off the IMDb page right now, but it felt about 6 hours. It's just like everything just takes so long to go through. Like, there's the monkey scene at the start of the film. The birth of man, or whatever it was called. That sequence in it. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, anyway, the scene at the start of the film, that goes on for, 20 minutes, and you're kind of thinking, like, when's it going to get into space? What's going to happen? And then, the bone gets thrown into the air and it turns into the satellite, and, well, it's not a satellite, it's a ship. And then it finally gets into the actual things happening in the movie. But then you're stuck for another 40 minutes or so getting to, just docking onto the ship, and it's just like, what is going on? And then, I think the film, for me, kind of launched into, I guess, just being exciting in general from after intermission, which is another weird thing for me for this film. And had intermission, and at this point, I already wanted to take 6 breaks because it just took so long to do anything. I feel bad. I probably should have enjoyed this movie, but with stuff like Star Wars and those genre-defining space films, for myself, they're the action and the adventure films that I like. So seeing a film that's just in space and it's nothing happening, and just for me, it wasn't my type of film. But yeah, so 2001: A Space Odyssey, didn't dig it. What do you guys think? I'm assuming you've both seen it.
Yeah, I've seen it.
I've seen enough. I've seen most of it. I haven't seen it the whole way through.
At what point did you stop watching it?
Well, kind of the same things Ryan was saying. I think you go in with it, and it's kind of a point I want to talk about, right? Is that you go in with such an expectation that a film like 2001, which I would love to kind of watch the whole way through, and I will get to it. I promise you, listeners. But you go in with an expectation of you've seen this film being parodied, whether it's in The Simpsons or any other kind of number of pop culture kind of avenues, right? And so you go in with this expectation, oh, cool, this is going to be about the HAL 9000 computer, and he's going to wreck the spaceship, and you think there's going to be, you kind of go in with that expectation, and suddenly there's, all the Dawn of Man stuff at the front of the film, and then just long shots of, like, rainbow space, it's just lots of, it's way slower than I had any thought it would ever be.
It's just like in the last 20 minutes of the film, like after he goes to that journey through space, and like the mind fuck scene, and then he becomes an old man, is just like, what the fuck is going on? And who smoked so much shit writing this movie and directing it? It's just like,
But
I understand.
that
No, you
still makes more sense than the end of Interstellar, which is an obvious homage to like the whole film.
I hated Interstellar too, so this might make sense.
After McConaughey goes through the wormhole and the bookshelf stuff happens, it's like I'd take this over that any day. Because that was when that film really lost me, and I was really disappointed with the way that Interstellar ended. But with this film, I'm kind of like, it was so weird that it was like I was just on board with it.
When did you see it? How long ago?
2001.
Yeah.
2001. Probably only about 5 years ago. But like I know what both of you are saying, but I think this is one film that you get much more respect for if you see it at the actual cinema.
Right. And I agree with you. It definitely has one of those, cinema style films. Like it's got those cinematic sequences and stuff like that, which probably would be much nicer to see. But that bloody sequence where it's, the lights and the lights and stuff, and towards the end of the film, where it's just kind of hypnotic and he's close up of his eye and stuff like that. There is no way I'd be sitting in a cinema watching that. Like,
but that's you can't deny that would be pretty awesome on acid. Like that.
Of course it would be, but sequence. I'm not.
See what you didn't do. You forgot to.
I wouldn't even know where to buy acid. The closest place I'd go to is a chemical shop, and I know I'd be hanging down the wrong direction, just burn my throat down.
But I think there's something that we need to kind of discuss here is that at the time when this came out, there was nothing like it at all. I mean, Star Wars was still 9 years away.
Sorry, 9 years. I think it's 73, but that's wrong.
And so there would be absolutely nothing of this scale that people would have seen before. So I think there's a sense of almost being spoiled with everything that we've seen since. And to go back to I mean, there's a lot of films that could be said about as well. That going, kind of taking a step back and looking at kind of the genesis of an entire genre, but just being done in a different way.
I think that it's with the cinema thing. I actually think when you're in a cinema, the filmmaker has your full attention. Whereas if you're watching something at home, there's so many distractions around. Whether you've got kids or even just like phones these days. It's too tempting to just check Facebook or something. So that's why I think like watching this in the cinema, cutting off all the outside world and just really just
sinking into it.
I'd be interested to see if you guys would have the same reaction if, say, you'd gone to, like, even now, like, I'm not just talking about back in, if we were alive back in the 60s, going to see it then. I'm talking about now if you went and saw it and whether it would still have the same kind of effect.
Well, it's a similar sort of thing, but I hadn't seen the film Alien in cinema, and my thought obviously mine was that Aliens is the better film, the sequel. But then I saw Alien in cinema, and that movie is incredible. And like, I don't say it's far superior than Aliens, but it's definitely a better film than Aliens, especially cinematic wise, visually wise, and watching it. Yeah. Oh, it's unreal. And then it's also scary as shit. Like, I'd seen it 12 times prior to seeing it in the cinema.
The sound is unreal. And
so I completely agree with you. This film would be totally different in cinema, but unfortunately, the whole point of this movie challenge is watching movies at home. And it doesn't have to be. I mean, if you have the chance to watch films, at the cinema, then go for it. But in most cases, I'm assuming most people were watching this at home.
See, this is like interesting that we talk about this now, because Martin Scorsese has come out this week and talked about how he thinks like true cinema is dead because young people just don't care, or young people just don't have the attention spans.
Patience.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. He's just made this film Silence, which is very slow paced and very serious, and it's kind of like, actually, as sad as it is, it's true, but it's because young people want to watch stuff at home. You can't force them to go to the cinema. If they did, they might get a better appreciation for this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. But I think there's also a sense of entitlement, or we need everything now, and that can even apply to films, right? we just kind of want to get to the good stuff. We don't want to have to slog through, you know, the artistic kind of stuff that may not excite all audiences. But unfortunately, that's kind of just where we as a generation have kind of gone, I guess. So it's learning to appreciate those kind of slower moments and looking at films as a whole, I guess. It's not easy, and I think it is much easier in the theater because I'm less likely to look at my phone and whatnot. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
But if I'd be interested to like see if any of our readers, listeners, whatever, have actually done the same thing and watched 2001 this week, because, and I'd like to know if there's anyone sort of still in their teens, because if you guys are having this reaction, I wonder what someone like 10 years younger might think. Whether they'll whether they'll even make it to the intermission.
Well, yeah, it's a bloody long film. Like, intermission, I stopped watching the movie for half an hour and then, came back to it kind of thing. I had a long intermission, but let's not talk about that.
Someone got lucky.
No, I did not mean it like that, but that's funny. Not with kids. It's a hard slog. It's a bloody long movie. It's Lord of the Rings style film, but it's just nothing happening. Obviously it's stuff happening, but it's not enough for me to keep my interest in it.
Maybe you should have watched A Hard Day's Night, which clocks in at an hour and 27 minutes.
Nice.
Well, let's talk about that. It's a good segue, Ben.
Breeze.
Tell us all about it. I've never seen it. I don't think Scoot's seen it either. Or Scott, sorry.
No, I have not.
Yeah, throw it in.
As you should know, it's actually a film starring the Beatles and featuring the music of the Beatles.
Who are the Beatles?
Just this underground four-piece. I don't know. I've been trying to tell people about them, but it's one of those things.
Good band.
Yeah, they're okay, but no. So I'd heard about the film for a while. I always assumed that films that starring bands were always pretty poor. Like they were always just kind of cash-in kind of things. But then I kept hearing from more and more people that. Sorry, are you about to drop some gems?
No, I was just one
Spice
gem.
World? Spice World?
I didn't even think about that. No, Kiss, and I think I'm just trying to remember the actual whole name of it, but I'm pretty sure it's like Phantom of the Park. That's what I was going to say, but I'm not sure if that's it. Yeah. Kiss meets the Phantom of the Park. That is a pure masterpiece and shit. Maybe we should watch that as being a horrible film. I might do that.
If that's in one of the weeks of the challenge, then I'll definitely be up for that.
Yeah.
But no, this is not shit. This is actually quite good.
Is this the first film they did?
This is the first film, and this is the best. Like it kind of they get it less good after this because they stop caring as much. But
less good.
There's kind of like a loose narrative. Basically, they're on their way to a concert they have to perform, and it just follows them around over the course of sort of a day. They're recording in like a television studio, and the fandom thing is around them. So when they're in the car on the way there and leaving and going, fans are following them, and it's got a really like it feels like improvised, a lot of it, because a lot of it was, but they do a great job of capturing them sort of improving, and like they're funny guys as it is, and they just sort of make the most of that. And you can tell some of the lines are rehearsed, and some of them they just come up with right then and there. And the performances are all great. Obviously, they did the album accompaniment to this film, so a lot of the tracks, or all the tracks in there, you'd probably recognize. And there's just an awesome energy to it, and it's really fun, and it's really good black and white cinematography. The guy who made it is obviously the guy who went on to do Superman motion picture.
It's number two.
Yeah, and he was
not number one. Richard Donner did number one.
He's the replacement director on number two.
Yeah. So he was there, which is a whole controversial thing in itself.
Richard Lester, so you're talking about, yeah?
Yeah, Richard Lester. So it was. He was obviously like a big fan of the band, and they made it work. And it's entertaining, even if you're not a Beatles fan. But everyone's a Beatles fan, aren't they? Really?
The music's incredibly catchy.
I'm still trying to work out who the Beatles are. Sorry, let's stop with that joke. No,
the ones that aren't the Monkees. No,
I think the Beatles. If you don't like the Beatles, it's one of those like unfriending people, right? Like it's like you don't like Star Wars, you don't like Beatles. We just can't be friends. Is that right? Pretty sure.
Yeah, I'd say
Hold
so.
on. That was an Anton silence right there.
No one knows what that is.
I don't know if I want to explain it either.
Yeah, probably not. No. I just think it's basically an extended music video, so it's stretched out to 90 minutes. But the stuff in between is actually funny in itself. Like they're actually funny guys, and you want to spend time with them. So.
And this is at their height of the career, right? It's before
Beatlemania.
Sergeant Pepper's and stuff like that. It's Beatlemania, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's before the hard drugs.
And actually, what kind of brought this on was because last year, Ron Howard obviously released that documentary, 8 Days a Week, which kind of followed the touring years of the band, and they touched on this film. They spend a lot of time talking about this film, so they got me thinking about it again. So.
Cool.
Any excuse to rewatch it. So I highly recommend you guys check it out.
I will. That sounds like a good idea.
If you're in fact into these kind of, or especially if you've yet to see a film starring musicians that isn't shit. So it's one of the few that isn't shit.
Fair enough. And I've never seen it, but the only thing I know that is a parody of it is the whole intro to Austin Powers.
Yeah.
And the whole film's not like that. It's just part of it, right?
No, it's the opening sequence when Hard Day's Night is actually playing. Well, they played a few times, but the opening sequence is where they're running through the streets and all the girls are chasing them. And
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an iconic scene. So yeah.
So, out of all this, what have we come up with? Did we enjoy the '60s films? Would we watch another one?
I definitely would, but I think they're very different, and I don't know if I was expecting that walking into it. But I think it's definitely a different era of filmmaking, and just generally they seem a lot slower, which is fine. It's just different than what I'm potentially used to. But I actually, what I'm excited about is that, I've knocked off the one from my list, but I would very much like to go out this week and watch both Hard Day's Night and finish 2001. And I'd implore, our listeners to kind of do the same. Maybe, if you have the opportunity not to just pick one, but, take some of these recommendations and expand your horizons. I think that's a great thing.
Well, I've noticed that, so your film, Scott, came out in 1961 when these films, particularly my film, 2001, those genre-defining films hadn't really started to happen yet. They were still in those 50s, shot on a set, with those big-name actors like, Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis, those kind of films. And then as we started getting towards the end of the 60s, these films 2001 and then, Rocky and then Star Wars, those things started happening, and the silver age of film kind of stopped. And I think it happened in the 60s is what my point of the story is. So I think it's pretty interesting from the decade of the 60s is almost like the turn of film in a way. Yeah. And there's a lot to watch in there that you can watch the change of it. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you'll see, as you head towards, obviously go through the 70s and the 80s, you're also seeing the medium change. Obviously, we just saw a black and white film. So you're kind of seeing the medium change, colors everywhere, then theaters slowly pop up everywhere, and people just started going to the movies a lot. And I think ultimately you'll see that completely change. You hit the 90s when VHS is rampant, and then DVD, and now streaming, and just the way people are ingesting film has obviously changed over the last 5-6 decades. And I think the types of films kind of changed with that.
Yeah. And you've got the big heavyweights like Coppola, Spielberg, Scorsese, like all these guys that just threw a spanner in the works in the 70s. Like once they were all game changers. So
well, I think another interesting point is I think those films from the Silver Age, you kind of would have no idea who's directing them. Like Scoot's film, Blake Edwards directed, I believe his name is, I off the top of my head, I probably wouldn't be able to tell you much else he's done other than the Pink Panther films. Yeah. But after that, you started getting people like Stanley Kubrick, and then George Lucas, Steven Spielberg, and stuff like that making the big films. And I think that's when directors started becoming the, almost like actors in their time, that they were almost A-listers too, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And so, yeah, the 60s, I think, was a great moment in film to watch it change. But yeah, should we leave it there? Should we?
Yeah. So what's next week?
Yeah. So next week is week number 2 is a movie based on a TV series. And so, try and pick something that you haven't seen. I'd love it if someone didn't choose Dukes of Hazzard or
why would anyone choose Dukes of Hazzard?
Well, I was going to like Starsky and Hutch and those kind of like Will Ferrell and Owen Wilson kind of
like those comedy versions, right? There are plenty of other films based on TV shows.
Oh, of course,
are serious.
What's that?
There's plenty of other shows that are not like comedies. I mean,
right? Yeah, they're more serious. Yeah. Sorry, I missed that word, serious. Yeah, no, I completely agree. But don't listen to me. Do whatever you want. Pick whatever film you want. It's just whatever you think you might enjoy, and if you want to watch it, watch it. That's the whole point. It's all for the love of movies, and yeah. So we'll sign out.
But before we sign out, we invite all our listeners to let us know what you watched this week from our 1960s films. Write us on Facebook or via email or on the website.
Even
and
Twitter.
Just let us know. Twitter, tweet us.
Yeah,
just tell us.
We have the hashtag. We have the hashtag. Fuck. Let me quickly work out what that is. Sorry.
SIIAG movie challenge, I believe it is.
Yeah. So if you
with a SIIAG.
Yeah, exactly. So if you want to hit us up for any comments or let us know what movies you watched, you hit the fucking hell. Just Scoot, you do it and I'll cut it. So the hashtag is #SIIAG movie challenge.
Okay, so you can hit us up on Twitter with the hashtag #SIIAG movie challenge.
Probably should have made that easier.
Start again.
Yeah. What is it? So is it okay? So SIIAG. Yeah.
Yeah.
So hit us up hit us up on Twitter with the hashtag SIIAG challenge. Is that it? So hit us up with it on Twitter with the hashtag SIIAG movie challenge and let us know what you watched this week, and we'll give you a shout out next week on the show, and we'll list off any of the movies that anyone watched, and if you have any comments about it, we'll kind of gonna go through those as well. But this is totally about us as a community coming together and kind of just celebrating each genre of film that we're kind of picking each week. So we all highly recommend and hope that we get somebody write us in and let us know what they watched.
Awesome. That's exactly what it's about. Just community watching movies and getting through the year and loving some film. So this is So Is Any Good? I'm Ryan.
I'm Scott.
I'm Ben.
And until next week, this is the movie challenge. Enjoy your week and enjoy your movies. See ya.
See you guys.
Happy watching.